Ever met a foundation that does it all? Say hi to NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Makeup meets skincare in a bottle. It evens skin tone, blurs imperfections, and has a natural radiant finish. Plus, it's formulated with skincare ingredients to help strengthen your skin's barrier. With a newly expanded shade range of over 40 radiant shades to choose from and buildable all-day wear. NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Find your perfect match.
This episode is brought to you by Abercrombie. Build your fits of the day with Abercrombie's newest denim drop. Here's where to start. Abercrombie's 90s straight jean goes with any shirt from tees to sweater polos. Super versatile. Their loose and baggy jeans are more trend forward, so you can grab those and go out with your friends. Abercrombie's denim fits come in a range of washes. Build your looks around Abercrombie denim. Shop online or in-store.
Hello and welcome to another season of The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40, created and hosted by me, journalist and author Sam Baker. And I just want to say, before I go any further, thank you. Thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and above all, thank you for talking about The Shift, because it is your love and loyalty and word of mouth, everything that has made The Shift the success it is today. Anyway, that's that. Moving on. My guest today is the Emmy Award-winning American journalist, Kate Fagan. Kate started out playing college basketball before making the move into sports journalism. She worked for American cable channel ESPN, which for Brits is like the sports channel in the States, and wrote the #1 New York Times bestseller, What Made Maddy Run. Then, just before she turned 40 and when she was at the top of her professional game, Kate took a hard left. She stepped away from the career that had made her famous, moved to Charleston, and married her wife, Kathryn Budig. Now she's written a novel, The 3 Lives of Kate K, that pushes all the buttons. A dissection of success and ambition and the true cost of living a lie. It was Reese Witherspoon's first book club pick of the year.
There's an interesting phenomenon probably for lesbians in America who have watched the L Word, because a lot of us watched the original L Word when it came out, and we were the age of those characters, like the Shanes. And then the L Word Q generation came out, and those original L Word characters are also on that, but they're the old ladies in that.
Well, Kate was on the Edinburgh leg of her book tour. She came to hang out in my flat and feed Sausage the cat Dreamies. While she was here, she also managed to discuss the moment she was bitten by the ambition bug and how she's still struggling to shake it off, the lack of female sporting role models when she was young, coming out at 30, and the stories we tell ourselves, or maybe are told, about what it means to be a successful human. We also chatted age dysmorphia, crossing the 40 threshold, and the conversation she wishes she'd had with her mum. She also introduced me to the concept of TODs. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you.
This is so fun.
Sunny Scotland.
Oh, I mean, I'm a cloud girl.
Just as well.
I got the Irish soul, so I'm happy. It's cloudy.
So you're in your happy place.
Yeah.
So Charleston's not
nearly cloudy enough.
Not nearly cloudy enough. No.
Too many beaches, too much sun.
Oh my God, how awful. How did you end up there?
My wife had bought a house there before we met. And she tried to come up to New York, but she was, we were one of those people. She was past her city date, She just couldn't do a city anymore. So we moved down. Yeah.
And how did you feel like that? Because it's a big change.
I was pretty worried about it, but I loved Charleston when I visited, and I love her. So,
well, yeah.
So. And now I think it's got a lot of problems like any place, but I think of all the places I've lived, it's got the most upside. Yeah. It's got beaches, great food, history, good museums, good art. It's getting better with accepting its past. So, you know, and like, because it was
it's
one of
not
the two
unproblematic, is it?
one of the two like slave trade ports. The biggest one was there. So, but you know, and it's not perfect, but it's pretty wonderful. Yeah.
Because were you in New York before that?
I was in New York for 7 years before that. And I'd grown up in upstate New York. Yeah. And then, I mean, I'd lived all over the States, but New York was my favorite. I thought of myself as like a New Yorker.
So you hadn't tired of the city?
No. But once Kathryn my wife pointed certain things out to me, I started, every time I had like a subway that had like a multiple change, I started to see the pain she was feeling. So I was ready, even though I didn't think I was, to leave it.
Yeah. You have quite a lot to say about success and ambition, don't you? To judge by the 3 Lives of Kate K.
Yes.
A lot. There's a lot going on. Why did you choose fiction to say it?
I don't think I chose fiction to say it. I think I just wanted to write fiction, and I didn't know what I was going to say. And I always read, I don't know who said it, just writers always saying, I write to find out what I think about the world. I didn't understand that, because in nonfiction, it was very much, no, I find out about the world and then I write.
Yeah.
And when I saw novelists say, I write to find out, I was like, I don't relate to that. But I think that must be more of a fiction thing, because it's not as if when I started on this project, I thought this is going to be a book about ambition and the pitfalls of ambition and success. I just was like, I'm going to write a story and we'll see where we go. And it makes sense to me now. That's what I wrote about, because it is one of the themes that I'm constantly trying to understand.
Yeah, it's really interesting reading the book and then listening to you talking on some podcasts that were like slightly older. You can absolutely see, so probably 2018, 2019, 2020, you can absolutely see all the threads of the novel.
Yes.
In what you were saying before you were writing it. So it was all going on in there. And it was kind of going on in your life.
Yes. And now that I think about it, very much so, a nonfiction book I wrote called Made Maddy Run was about a young athlete who died by suicide, but really it was about young people and pressures and success and ambition and the stories we tell them about what it means to be a successful human in our society. And that whole book was about buying into that false story about what would make you happy. And then for this book to really tell a fictional, completely separate story, really about that, without me planning to do that, is very interesting about how like your mind and just your insides work a lot of times without you knowing what really matters and what's really going on in there.
When did you first absorb that message about got to achieve, got to succeed, got to climb, if you like?
I don't know. And that is, I think, part of what I think the main character in the 3 Lives of Kate K, I don't think she's outwardly thinking it, but I don't think she could really tell you why she is this way. I think she's trying to make a story out of it. But that is very directly parallel to my own story, because I don't have any sense of why I have that inside of me. Like my dad, he loved basketball and he wanted to play it at the highest level possible, but he was perfectly content to move back home and live around his family and raise kids. And he had no grand ambitions past that in the most beautiful, lovely way. Not like he was complacent. And my mom had much more wanderlust and much more big dreams, but she was not somebody who was passing those on to me, being like, honey, you have to live my dreams for me. And my sister, same thing. She's not bitten by this ambition bug in the same way that I am. So I don't know. Is it coded in? Is it genetic? Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know that I necessarily think it's the best.
No. But there's a brilliant phrase that Cate uses in the book about the point that she realized she wanted to eat the world. Mm-hmm. Can you remember when you first wanted to eat the world?
Yes, yeah. Well, so again, I'm not Kate K. But
no, sorry.
No. But I do. There's key pieces of her story that I was like, these are the key memories of my own life, and they're going to be the mile markers of her life. There was a moment in my own life where I was really young, and I was just probably rode my bike to get some candy at the neighborhood store, and I just was riding my bike back, and I kind of had to stop because I just had a feeling overtake me about just not understanding what existed outside of our whatever the planet and the solar system is. And I think everybody kind of has some version of that, I think, and maybe some people don't, which is its own conversation.
Yeah.
But whether it's like you're young and you're like playing in like the garden or something, or wherever it is, and all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, you start to separate yourself from the world and think, what is all of this? That very much happened to me, and I can still remember what street I was on, and I can just remember very key details about that moment. And I don't know if it, in the book, in Kate K's story, it is that moment that's sort of part of what sends her on her journey, even though I don't love that word, as you know, sends her on her story and her quest. And that is very much a true thing for me. And I could be making like a false equivalence there. Like I kind of remember that moment and like just the grandness of whatever this is overcoming me, and thinking that has something to do with ambition and everything, wanting to see all of the world and be a part of all of the world and make a mark on the world. And I wanted that to be embedded in her. But I don't know that is the origin moment for any of us. Maybe it's just part of the story.
I definitely recognized it, though, when I was reading it. I definitely thought I probably wouldn't have put it like that. But actually, I remember feeling that from a really early age and being kind of driven by it for decades.
Yeah. What was it? Can you tell me do you kind of remember what the details were of the feeling, whatever it was?
Not really, but I remember really, really young. I mean, like kind of in the playground at school, wanting more, and actually like Cate, which is so weird. For a while I wanted to be an actress, which anybody who knows me, who is listening to this, will go, you wanted to be an actress, because I no more get on a stage than I could shoot a hoop. I mean, it's just not going to happen. But I think it was just, I don't know, is it wanting to be seen, wanting to, I'm not sure, but it's something that it's ingrained in us, and then we're taught that it's good. Mm-hmm. And it's, it's like the kind of sporting analogy. You've got to win, you've got to compete, you've got to be bigger, better, faster, more. Or, I don't know whether you had this, but like growing up I'm kind of 10 years older than you, a kid in the late in the 80s, a girl in the 80s, I was a bit like, I don't want that. I don't want that thing that girls are meant to want, that kind of, all of that stuff. So it also became about that, about pushing back against that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Does that resonate for you?
I circumvented the second half of that because my dad had played sports, and he only had daughters. And from a very young age, when I showed interest in like wanting to go to his game with him.
So he grabbed you.
He grabbed me and he brought me everywhere. And so my visual was more, oh, I can do this. And it was not, you got to be with your, my mom was also working as well. And so I never felt like my future had been boxed into like, this is what women do. So I kind of like skirted the outside of that. And it wasn't until I was much older, almost in my mid-20s, where I realized, a lot of women who grew up my age who didn't get grabbed into sports early, they really had an awakening with reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
Yes, yeah.
They read it and they were like, oh, I'm a cheetah. Yes, I can do it all. Yes. And I'm like, I learned that when I was 8. Which I always felt grateful for that part of it. So I kind of...
So lucky your parents didn't have a boy.
That's right. That's right.
Because but that might have been the case. They might have gone,
It could
oh,
have been.
no, Billy's coming to basketball. You can
stay back here. No. So, but definitely the success ambition thing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I have it, and I can't get rid of it. I'm trying. I tried to write it out of me. I tried. I'm trying to purge it.
I guess having it isn't necessarily the bad thing. It's what you do with it, or maybe what it does with you.
Mm-hmm.
So you started playing basketball at a pretty senior level, quite young, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Were there female basketball players, or was it all guys?
When I was growing up, whenever I played outside of organized basketball, you could only play with guys. I mean, my whole childhood, even up through university level, was playing. I would be the only woman on a basketball court outside of like whatever the organized team was. That was how I functioned, was like surviving in a world that was not meant for women, which helped me in a lot of ways at various points of my career, but made me a little bit blind to other major issues a lot of women were facing that I didn't come around to truly understand until later, because I wasn't part of that world when I was growing up at all.
So for instance,
truly seeing how people thought of, in this case, I think the Untamed Glennon Doyle thing is great. Like the fact that most of my contemporaries read that book and felt like it was enlightenment to them.
So when was Untamed published in the States?
Right when the pandemic started.
Same here. But it's true, it did feel like that. I mean, I remember, see the cats feeling left out.
Come here.
Yeah, it was published about the same time here then.
Yep.
But I remember I was writing my book, The Shift, at the same time, and I remember reading it and thinking, oh my God.
Okay, so yeah.
Still, yes, there were definitely bits of it that felt like, all of the lights going on.
Mm-hmm. So like that, I think that was, and then also really understanding how women are viewed culturally, especially because my lane was the sports world, and coming of age in a time before you would have like at messages and before you could consume how people were truly thinking about things. That's where, so if my dad was telling me that I was important and my basketball was important, then that is how I perceived how most men thought about women doing things, that it's valued. I did realize that all of my role models were men. My favorite, when somebody asked you for your favorite team, like there was no women's team to be favorite of. I could not have found a poster of a female athlete. I had these little inklings, but they weren't full thoughts until I got out of college, social media started, and then I realized all of the things that most women had known all along, which was like, oh, this isn't valued. Oh, culturally, this is rejected. This is ostracized. This is seen as lesser than. And then I started to have the reckoning later than a lot of people did.
So then so how old were you when you went into sports journalism?
It was right after I stopped playing, so like 22, 23. Right away, freelancing for a newspaper covering sports, and then got a full-time job outside of Seattle at a small little newspaper. And then I'd done sports journalism and journalism for the next 20 years, almost all exclusively in sports.
Were you out at that point, or was that something that came later?
Much later. Because the wild thing about women's sports, and I think this would hold true across cultures, even like here in England, was that even though women's sports had the reputation of like, oh yeah, there's a lot of lesbians in women's sports, the gatekeepers were all still white men. So even though once you got into the middle of women's sports, whether you were on a team or you were within coaching, you would know that you would see that like it would be half would be gay women. No one would publicly say that they were gay because they would never get a job. I mean, at one point when I first started covering women's sports, there's 300 plus women's coaches in college coaching in the US. 0 were out. None. And so my takeaway as like a young woman who was in this system was, first my takeaway was, okay, being gay is very bad because a lot of these young players, women that I was playing with, who were also probably themselves gay, were so scared of reinforcing the stereotype that everyone saw about women's sports that they were just like so closeted. All of the coaches I knew were closeted, to the point where any coach that I talked to about it would be like, they actually had 2 different closets. They had a closet for when they would go out with their friends and they were out, and they had a professional closet. And then anytime like the team would come over or they'd have to recruit, like photos would go away. And so for the first 10 years professionally, I was so closeted until one editor I met at ESPN said, like, just was so out, and everyone seemed fine with it. And I was baffled. And that was when the thought came into my mind, like, maybe.
Was that a guy or a woman?
It was a woman. Yeah. It was a woman. And so, and I was like, oh, maybe this can be a thing. And so I think I came out when I was like 31. It's like where I stopped lying about it completely. And that would have been like 2009, 2010, which is wild to me now.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yes. But at that time, it felt very much like what needed to be done. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about when I was reading the book, and I mean, it's the Reese's book club pick for this month, isn't it? Yeah. Has Hello Sunshine also optioned it?
No, we don't. We haven't sold film and TV rights.
Haven't sold film and TV rights. Because I was thinking about that and thinking about, it seems to me that the only thing that Hollywood likes less than an aging woman would be an aging lesbian.
Yes, it's funny you say that, because their thinking would be like, is this going to be visually appealing to the vast demographics we want to sell this to? And I think all of that is still inside of me, as in all of it is still inside of me, as in like I've written a book and almost everybody in the book is queer. And yet I still have that idea that like I need to like put like a level of sexiness on it. There's this, I'm kind of all over the place, but they're in the WNBA in the US, there's this term for the fan base over there called, like, only if you're like deeply in the know of that world, and it's called TODS, and it's an acronym for Tired Old Dykes. But it's not derogatory. The women who have built this organization and the WNBA and have been lifers, there's almost a level of respect in this term. Okay. And and like a level of like, here is a fan base and a group of women who have decided that they're not going to play by the rules of like how their bodies need to look for men, how they need to present themselves. And I aspire to this. I still have not been able to fully embrace it. And because do I want my own self to not worry about that I need to look in a way that like a majority of people would find as most attractive as I can manage? Do I want to let all of that go? Yes. Do I have great respect for those fans of the WNBA? Yes. Am I ready to think that I still have that belief that like that won't sell? That can't be mainstream. That can't like that for somebody who's ambitious, like I have to put like a shiny gleam on all of it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, is the call coming from inside the house? Or, yes, it is. But how did it get there in the first place? And I think that definitely applies to, you use a brilliant phrase in the book. I think I'm slightly truncating it, but age dysmorphia. And I absolutely love that, because I just think that the way that age morphs as we age, but also depending who we're with, and that kind of, I'm completely cool with being however old, and then you kind of look in the mirror and go, but I'd quite like to get rid of that bag. And it's.
And I loved when we were chatting about this podcast in advance, the delineation of 40 and older.
I know it's random.
It's not though. At least my experience is being now 43, and my wife and I, she's also 43. everyone in my life who has crossed the 40 threshold, it is a delineating marker. I mean, I know you probably talk about this all the time,
No,
but like it's not 38, it's not 39, and it's not like you turn 40 and like it's not like the day of your birthday, but it's like things sort of start to fall apart physically a little bit. And you start at least this has been my experience, I start for the first time questioning my place in the cultural relevancy.
It's relevance. I think relevance is the big word.
I don't understand language the same way in terms of the way people are using it.
Yeah.
I don't assume that who I'm listening to is who is cool. It's just all of that kind of goes away. And when at being 43, I still think like I'm in the middle of like the reckoning of it, trying to understand how I'm going to navigate it. Am I going to go Todd? Or am I going to fight and cling?
I might have to borrow that. You're going to go full Todd.
Yes.
Or are you gonna... This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. Is it just me, or does it seem like everyone is either starting a side hustle or becoming their own boss? And you know what they're hearing a lot? It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your own business. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses, big and small, worldwide. Whether you're selling jeans or juice, books or blusher, Shopify simplifies selling online and in person. Covers all your sales channels from a shop-front-ready POS system to its all-in-one e-commerce platform. It even helps you sell across social media like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And it's full of industry-leading tools that give you complete control without having to learn new skills like design or coding. And thanks to award-winning help and with an extensive business course library, Shopify is ready to support your success every step of the way. What's lovely about Shopify is that no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify will be there to empower you with confidence and control to take your business to the next level. It's time to get serious about selling and get Shopify today. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/shift, all lowercase. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift to take your business to the next level today. That's shopify.co.uk/shift. Yeah, it's interesting because when Miranda July came on, before All Fours came out, I think she started writing All Fours when she was 45 and she was coming up 50. And she was really, at that point, because it hadn't been published, she was really anxious. But one of the things that she said that really struck me was like it felt like coming out as her age. And she was worried that it would affect how people felt about her, that they didn't care how old she was. But if she told them how old she was, it might change.
Yeah.
It's a really, really weird thing. I mean, how old were you? About 38, 39 when you left ESPN?
Yeah, probably 37, 38. Yeah.
So how much, if at all, did age play into that? Because you had been, you were on that trajectory. You're climbing, you're like perceived very successful. The kind of obvious next route would have been, I guess, fronting your own show.
Yes,
instead you took a hard left.
Yeah. And so I think age only played like a secondary role. And when I left ESPN, there were two factors. One was my dad had been diagnosed with ALS. I think his diagnosis and our history together made me question my choices and the allegiance I had to choosing success and ambition above all other choices, which I think at a certain time in your life can feel like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I got time. Time is what I have.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I have time to choose this.
And had you felt like it was the binary that you choose, if you chose success and ambition, you were choosing it over You couldn't have a relationship and a successful personal life and all of that.
It felt binary. Not that I couldn't have all of those things, but that the prioritization in my own mind would be known to them. I think that is what pained me when the ALS diagnosis came in with my dad, is that he had known and he had pushed back against some of my choices that were fully ambition and success driven. And even though that didn't mean I wasn't going to come home for Christmas when I could, it's just, he knew after a lifetime of him prioritizing me and my sister, I had made decisions that were the reverse. And I think, so it was less like I saw it as a binary and more that I knew the emotional impact of what the collateral damage of everybody in my life knowing where my priorities were, which was like, yeah, I'm home for Thanksgiving, but I'm leaving early 6 a.m. Friday morning because like this only worked because the thing I needed to do happened to be Friday, not because I had chosen it.
Yeah.
And so that was that kind of, I think I was shaken by that realization that I thought I had more time and now I needed to really focus on pouring back into him. It's something that I thought I could do over the next like 30 years that was now needed to be done in like 2 years. And I think that shook me up for a little bit. And then I kind of went back to my old ways.
Yeah, because that, I mean, it is literal, isn't it? You literally have less time when you're 40 than you did when you were 20. And there's no getting away from that. When you kind of got kind of to the top-ish or near the top, did the view look like what you expected it to look like?
No. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm trying not to put words in your mouth.
No, I wish I could, like, I think most writers would say putting out a novel and having Reese pick it is probably the best you could do. I mean, obviously Oprah could pick it, you know, like
is Oprah better than Reese? No,
right, exactly.
Like
sorry, Reese, if you're listening.
Reese face off.
And I don't feel like I feel happier or, you know, like it's all just the same discovery, which is a fleeting feeling of, oh, this is cool, but I can't quite grab it and it's gone. And
it moves, doesn't it? Because
it does
whatever
move.
you get, it's like money. It's like you get a pay rise and then you want another pay rise. It's like you get some success. Like I think I might have heard you talk about this before, success inflation almost.
Yeah.
It's like you say, you get a Reese book club pick, which frankly, we would all love, Reese. But then it's like, oh, but I haven't sold the film rights. Or I was on the New York Times bestseller list, but I wasn't in the top 10 on the new. And it's just like, it's never enough.
It's so demoralizing in its own way. Like I have not been more anxious in my life than the last 2 weeks.
Bloody publishers.
And not even like, oh, I'm busy. It's more a prison of my own making where I know I shouldn't look at the Amazon ranking.
Oh God, and don't look at the reviews.
Don't look at the reviews. But have I done both those things? Yeah.
Of course, yeah. I'm sure there aren't any 1 stars, but you know, I have a friend who has been a Reese pick. And she had something like 4,999 4 or 5 star Amazon reviews, but the only one she believed was the one that was 1 star.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Not healthy. I do try, if I'm going to read reviews, I filter out to just the 5 stars because I'm like, I'm already torturing myself in my own head. So I'm going to try to counterbalance that with like some people who love the book because it just has been, it's like if you get the Reese pick, then you're like, then you want to live up to whatever your publisher thinks it should be, and the ridiculous thoughts that come into your head, like, is Reese going to regret picking this? You know, like, so. I'm sure she's just happy to, like, you know, keep moving the book club forward, but you just like, it's like the level of torture thoughts that come in also rise.
It's like I remember changing jobs once and saying to my husband, it's going to be better. It's going to be less work. And he kind of looked at me, looked me straight in the eye and said, are you not taking yourself with you? And that's the kind of thing, it's like, what was the thinking when you left ESPN? Did you think you were leaving that bit of you behind?
Yeah. It's like, it's like the Elizabeth Bishop has a great poem on traveling. And the whole thing is like, wherever you go, there you are vibe. But I feel that way about travel too. I think I picture myself in Edinburgh and like all my anxiety's gone and I'm just like observing the beautiful buildings and then I get here and like I'm refreshing Instagram. What am I doing? Because that is my like sort of anxious personality. But when I left ESPN, I thought a lot of what had happened at ESPN were like I did not want to do TV because I didn't think that would be healthy for me. But
in what way?
In the same way that you wanted to act, but then you thought, but can you imagine being on stage and how the self-awareness level that you'd have to let go of that I don't think I'm capable of? That same thing was like why I wouldn't want to do TV and why I didn't like TV was because just, do I need another level of self-awareness? Because like then you're not only thinking about how the people around you are perceiving you, you're also thinking about like how the camera and how the public, I didn't need another layer of it, but there was more money in it. There was, building platform, which everybody was saying was the thing. And so when I left that, I thought I was leaving some of that behind, but I realized that it wasn't like the TV that had done that to me. It was my own self that was doing it. And whatever that part of myself came with me. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take care of my dad, right? But I also have to have my next thing. I got to have my next thing because I can't just sit still. I can't just be okay with being me. It's always got to be like, what am I doing? What am I working on? What am I producing? What am I making? I did relate to Glennon Doyle in Untamed where she was like, you will never see me sitting on a couch before 5 p.m. outside of this couch we're currently sitting on.
Yeah, but this is a work couch.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's me. Like if I'm on the couch before 5 p.m., I am very sick.
Yeah.
I just don't feel good about it. I feel guilty. I feel like...
Is that a bit of institutionalization? I think it's when I left my job in magazines, I struggled a lot. And part of it was definitely that I'd always had somewhere I had to be and somewhere I had to stay until, and then probably go on and do something else that was work related. So my days were mapped out for me effectively. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like I totally get the couch, because I feel like the same about the TV. It's like the TV cannot go on. There's got to be like 7 p.m. or something.
Yeah, the sun has got to be down before the TV goes on.
Which is fine up here in the winter, but in the summer you'd be so screwed.
No. Oh, when daylight savings times happen, or whatever one where we get an extra hour, I'm always like, an extra hour of just like torturing myself before I'm allowed to relax, because like if the sun is still shining or out, then like I can't not be doing. And that I'd love to fix it. Have people fixed this? Have you met people who fixed this?
I think I feel like I fixed it a bit.
Okay.
I think if that's your personality, it's probably your personality, but it depends what else is going on, what else is driving it. Yeah. Maybe. And it's definitely changed for me as I've got older. I kind of feel like, and it is a theme that comes up again and again on the podcast. So Amanda de Cadenet was on and she was talking about how she felt about success, how that had changed just in the last couple of years. I think she's maybe kind of your age, early 40s. I'm not sure. But it definitely seems around this point that people are like, what does success look like to me now? What am I trying to, is it external? Is it internal? Mm-hmm.
So there is a part in The 3 Lives of Kate K. It's a later chapter from a very minor character's perspective that is my life philosophy if I could execute it, which is make what's around you beautiful. The rest will grow from there. And so whenever I find myself panicking about, have I sent enough books to enough people? Is what I'm doing relevant enough? I try to just like stop, text message or call all of like my 3 closest friends, send something nice to some, just like treat my life like immediately around me, like a garden, and focus on that. And then I'll do that for a little while. And I realize how like fundamentally content I am. And then something will pull me out of that. And off I am again for like 3 weeks where I'm like just worried about things that are outside of my control and trying to do. And then I'll be like, no, I have to make what's around me beautiful. And then like I'll have a couple days of that. And then again, content, filled with love, feel meaning. And then, but like, how do you keep that when all of culture is not valuing that?
That's the trouble.
And so it's like all of the messaging you're getting is like really pulling you away from this idea of like, make what's around you beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, that is the cat with his pizza boxes. Sausage. Stop it. It's like, it's my pizza box. I'll chew it if I want to.
Yep.
We like life to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
I've completely forgotten what I was going to say now. Were you still at ESPN when you wrote What Made Maddy Run?
Yes, I was.
Was it, because that was incredibly successful, wasn't it? And critically acclaimed as well, which is like, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Did that encourage you to choose a different path?
It did. The success of it wasn't the encouragement. The encouragement was spending so much time around people and with so many younger people who seemed on the brink of making decisions for the wrong reasons and choose, so many young athletes and, 18, 19 years old that I would talk to during the course of the publication of that book and immediately after, who would reach out, wanted all the advice about like the internship they needed their junior year, then their senior year. And like, if they didn't get the exact right job right after college, and I could just see, and the way I was trying to counsel them to prioritize the right things, it was just like, it felt so hypocritical the way I was living my life, wanted to follow my own advice. And so it was less like, oh, I can make money and I have a career path outside of ESPN because I could do nonfiction books. It wasn't that so much as feeling that I felt like I was giving good advice and not living by it. And I wanted to try living by it. And I also the show I was backup hosting, this longtime lauded host of a show that was on that station, he decided to retire. It was very clear that if I wanted to start being the full-time host of that, and my thought when I heard his announcement was like, absolutely not. Like, there's no way. And that, like, why be somewhere when the thing you're supposed to want to host a show? My initial reaction was so much fear that he had decided to retire, because I kind of liked being like, kind of on TV, right? Like when he's on vacation, for a week I do it. And now all of a sudden it was like, no, this is your life. And I was like, no. So it was like a bunch of combination of things.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, I was expecting you then, this is like, I was totally prejudging that. And I was expecting you to say he resigned and it was really clear they were going to give the job to someone else. And I thought, screw you.
I'm leaving before you leave me.
Yeah.
No.
I immediately assumed that because like you said earlier about the sports world, no matter how many women you get in there, there's still all the gatekeepers are white men.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely feel like that was certainly, I mean, I worked in women's media and the gatekeepers were all still white men.
Yeah. And even the women's sports and how it's doing now over these last few years, like even in England with the Lionesses winning the Euros, and then in the US with like a couple female athletes just like skyrocketing to stardom.
Yeah, so on Megan Rapinoe.
Yeah. And it just, in all of that. And yet the blueprint is still men's sports. Like the blueprint of what makes women's sports successful is money and following the exact, build bigger stadiums and have higher salaries. And it's not that I don't want that for women, but at the same time, I'm like, none of that is making men's sports more successful, approachable. Like, I don't want to take us down a tangent of sports, but like the more money that is in sports, the deeper the roots of professionalization into the youth level. And so now I bet it's happening in many countries, but in the US, like you have 11-year-olds who are having 4 to 5 hour practices. So now success looks like what it looks like at the men's level, which we have done documentaries on and movies on about how corrupt that is. And now we're down that path. And so it's like, I mean, all of those things where the gatekeepers are the same still. So even if you have success in that area, it still has to look exactly like it looked for men. That was never a world that I found a lot of joy and fulfillment in.
Yeah, it's not a question of, okay, the model needs to change. It's like we need to have a bit of that model.
We're going to plug and play with the existing model and just give women more money within our model. And that does not look like, for a lot of the women I know, that looks like more of what we're talking about, like more professionalization, more pressure, division among teammates, because who's a star and who isn't, which is so much about what men's sports is about, not the joy and cohesion of that experience. But I mean, that's everywhere you look when it comes to capitalism is affecting all of us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking that when I said earlier about the language of sport and competition and winning and more and being the best, I didn't at any point, even write in my notes, team.
Because that is the way it has gone. Like, people are fans of Steph Curry or LeBron or Ronaldo. And I know in soccer or football, maybe it is a little more team, but in the US, it's very rarely team now. It is like you are following an individual. And that sounds painful to me for the individual as well.
Yeah, it really is. Well, you, in the 3 Lives of Kate K, there's a point where you describe fame as being like a near-death experience. And that's, I get that.
What do you relate to about that?
Well, I haven't had that experience, but I can see that even the tiny proximity that you might have to it, where the only thing worse than somebody reviewing your book badly is somebody not reviewing your book at all.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of how you cease to exist in your own eyes.
Yeah.
Almost.
And I think about people's idea of wanting fame and wanting celebrity, even in the face of seeing how it impacts the people who have it. Because I wouldn't say we think that celebrity, they seem really kind and down to earth. I mean, I don't know that if you have fame and celebrity, I think it's foolish to think that you will change that culture as opposed to that culture just changing you. The incessant pursuit of it, despite all of the feedback I see being like, this separates you, fundamentally separates you from humanity. People stop seeing you as an actual person and they see you as an entity. And yet, what is it about so many of us where if you told us like, you can have fame, you'd probably say, most of us would probably like opt in, you know, just something different, something new. And a lot of people who get it kind of want to opt into more.
Yes, so it's back to what we were saying about success inflation. It's like what our definition of success is.
And it's just so, I've been finding it so hard to opt out of the wanting more, despite intellectually knowing that is what would make me happier. Raining down on me of like, okay, just opt into more and more. Opting out is a very consciously hard decision to make, that the Todds have made to bring it back around, you know? Just like, I'm opting out. I'm opting out that my body needs to look like you want it to look. I'm opting out that I need to be like what culture says is sexually attractive. I'm opting out that I need to care about the things that culture cares about. Like, I'm opting out. I find that to be desirable.
Like, you want to, but
it's like, well, as long as I can, I gotta cling, you know? It wasn't a conscious opt out, right? They were forced out. And then they just leaned into the out. You know, all the stories you say and you tell yourself.
Yeah, I interviewed someone for a newspaper last year, and they said, and he meant it as a massive compliment. He said, I love the way you're leaning into aging. And I just thought, I know what you mean. I don't like what you said, but I know what you mean. It's like not pretending.
Bridget Jones, it's time to live.
This Galentine's Day, make a date with Peacock.
I set you up on Tinder. What? You're welcome.
You can call me Rockstar.
Bridget Jones.
But you can call her mummy.
Experience the final chapter of Bridget's unforgettable journey.
By all that's holy, Bridget Jones.
You are a brilliant woman. Embrace the chaos.
Enjoy your weekend, Mrs. Darcy.
Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boy. Streaming only on Peacock February 13th.
So what does, like, you're 43 and you've opted out of the New York City thing. What does success and ambition look like for you now?
I want it to look like freedom. That's what I want it to look like. Like a lot of the things we've talked about, I want to make the decision of choosing to not care as much about like how the object of me is viewed. I want to care less about that. And this is kind of a complicated question, but like, I don't want fame and celebrity, but could I have some power?
Yeah, it's because those things are all so conflated.
It's so conflated, and I feel so hypocritical saying it, but like, I don't want to be known, but I want power. Can that exist? Like power to be able to write the things I want to write and publish them where I want to publish them. Power to like, again, this is so ridiculous, but like to go to the restaurant I want to go to and get a good reservation when I want. Like, I want to help other people that I respect be able to do the things they want to do. So, but like, am I conflating those two? Am I wanting the one thing, but it never comes without the other thing? You know, and also wanting power doesn't feel like a very sort of sane, kind thing to want either.
But it's a different definition of power, isn't it? I mean, I think that's one of the things that struck me as I've got older, is I still want to achieve in my career and I want control over my own life. Mm-hmm. Where are you on the continuum of getting to a point where, because I've heard you talk a lot and you've talked today, and certainly it's a theme in the book, that kind of chasing the thing to fill the hole that doesn't fill the hole. Mm-hmm. What does filling the hole look like for you in the upcoming future?
If I'm realistic, it probably looks like a few more years of chasing, because I think I do know intellectually that if you climb to whatever the top of your mountain is that you have imagined your whole life, that it will finally feel like you want it to feel. I think I know almost certainly it won't. But I do think there's like some question marks still in my head. As much as it pains me to acknowledge that, I think it probably does look like some more chasing. And this is sort of a hard right, but my wife and I have like a great group of friends. Like there's like 8 to 12 of us, and we are truly committed to buying a piece of land together and living on it as we get older. And that could look like a different time period to whoever, right? Like there could be some of us who want to move there and build something in the next 10 years and others who you're looking more in your 60s. But I feel very strongly like that is truly a very honest, hopeful, and possibly successful way of filling the hole, which is true community. As we all age and we each have our body parts replaced, we are there for one another. I don't think it's not a pipe dream where we're all just like, oh yeah, we're going to do this thing. Like we are legitimately like, gonna form like a little LLC and look for land and like find a couple different places where we would all be okay if that's where it ended up being. And I think, I'm also of two minds where like, realistically, I know I'm going to like probably chase the artificial thing for a little bit longer. For what reason? Just to like know. Maybe just to know with certainty. A certainty I already have, so let's just like ignore that part. But then I also am like so clear that the most joyful times of my life have been like the rented cabin for the weekend where like there are no cell phones and all we did was smoke a little weed and play cards, and like never been happier. So it's like that's my long-term plan, which feels healthy to me. In the short term, I think there's going to be some unhealthy things I probably still do.
Yeah. Like you're human.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to ask you the questions that I always ask.
Okay.
What is your emotional age?
28. Wait, emotional age is in what age I think I am?
Yeah, I guess what age you feel. Yeah, what age you think you are.
Oh, okay. Emotionally, meaning like how I think I interpret the world. probably the age I am. What age I think I am, I'm always feeling like I'm 28 or 29. That is the age supposedly female athletes peak. And so maybe it's just like the age I feel like when I started to feel like I'm a full adult and like I've gathered a good amount of understanding about the world. Everything after that feels like I don't see myself. When I look in the mirror, I don't see the physical aging that has taken place since then.
So when you look in the mirror, you kind of see 28-year-old Kate.
Yeah, and I think there's an interesting phenomenon probably for lesbians in America who have watched the L Word, because a lot of us watched the original L Word when it came out, and we were the age of those characters, like the Shanes. And then the L Word Q generation came out, and those original L Word characters are also on that, but they're the old ladies in that.
Yeah.
And so I see Shane now, and I'm like, oh yeah, Shane's 43. And I'm like, oh, like that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. Like I've been gaslit by myself, and that sounds negative, but I mean, like I'm here every day. So like I have not seen the change, but like if somebody saw 2006 L Word and then they came back and they watched 2018 L Word, they see the change in Shane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's me. I don't see it myself.
It is like that classic old thing your gran used to say, or one's gran used to say about how they still felt like 20 inside and they were like 80.
Yeah.
You just don't think that will ever happen to you?
No.
Give us a book recommendation.
There's a book by Emily Danforth called Plain Bad Heroines that came out about 4 years ago. It came out here in the UK, although she is an American author.
Oh, I've got it.
Yeah.
I've read it. Yes.
Oh, you've read it?
Yes, I loved it.
Yeah, it's just a lovely, sweeping kind of queer book, but also with themes that are resonant in the 3 Lives of Kate K as well. Like I really love about Plain Bad Heroines is that she's brought a lot of like Hollywood allure to like a kind of almost a Victorian undercurrent.
What advice would you give younger women?
Oh, that's so good. Don't listen to me would be my advice.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice I try to live by is the like, you're always gonna, no one can tell you that the thing you want isn't gonna be as satisfying as you think it is. So it's ridiculous to be like, don't worry about that. I mean, here I am, not doing that. But I do think that like, you gotta also, you are going to set yourself up for failure if you are not consistently at least tending to the world around you, the people around you. And by no means do I think that I am like the shining beacon of hope in that regard. But I have always like kept one eye on the love around me and making sure that those people feel valued and prioritized, even as I am also simultaneously like in my own mind kind of obsessed about trying to climb whatever illusion mountain is in front of me.
Who's an older woman who inspires you?
My mom.
Is it your mom on your Instagram?
Yeah. So she passed away 3 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I was a big fan of hers. Huge fan. And she would have loved this conversation because she was 65 when she died.
Oh my God, that's so young.
So young. And it was like kind of, I mean, she was sick, but it was super sudden in the end. And I loved her pursuit of her dreams later in life, that, you know, she had kind of gotten caught up in like the married at 21, raising kids. And so I love that she was in the middle of like writing a novel when she died, and just like her joy for like the small things in life. While also simultaneously wanting the big things in life. And that's something I always adored about her. And even more so now that she has passed away, just like every time I get caught up in like, okay, oh, we got passed over for this big thing, right? Like, oh, we're not going to do that. Or like, this didn't work out. She always was so good about coming back to like the beautiful cup of coffee and the crossword puzzle. And that to me is like, was the biggest life lesson. And I also like, I wish so much I had been more open to the conversation that I think she wanted to have about the pain she felt that she was trying to work through with feeling unseen in the world once she got older. And I think I wanted her to get over it. I could always see her whenever she didn't want to take a picture. And if she did, she'd zoom in on herself real quick and then kind of give it back to me. And I wish I had like really had that conversation with her. And because I can kind of see it happening now, like I can feel what she was feeling now. So I'm kind of all over the place on that, but like she was just so wonderful in no way that like society would say like, oh, well, she achieved all the things you want. But she was just always working things out and being present to work things out and to talk about them and to like really feel what life was. I think that's how I want to be, is like always, always, always like all the undercurrents, like naming them and trying to define them and trying to like turn them into a joy and a connection instead of something that kind of like erodes you.
What's your superpower?
Observation, I think. Maybe it's innate or maybe it's 20 years of journalism, but knowing a little faster than most which details make a person, say something about a person or are relevant. And I think that has helped transitioning to fiction, just kind of knowing, looking around a room and being like, I think I could find a few things here that shape who somebody is.
Now I'm worried because you're looking around my room going, okay, I've made a few.
Well, you love Japanese whiskey or you have some.
That's not me. That's my husband. Yeah.
No, but
whiskey and I have a bad history.
Yeah, anything brown liquor is never a good vibe.
How many fucks do you give?
God, about a lot of things, way, way more than I should. I also think I'm pretty good about other things. So where am I? Where am I in that? Twice as many fucks as I want to give, probably, still.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Gladiator 2 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. Rated R. Years after the death of Maximus, Lucius is forced into the Colosseum after his home is conquered by tyrannical twin Roman emperors. With the future of the empire at stake, he must find strength and honor to return the glory of Rome to its people. Gladiator 2, now streaming on ParamountPlus.com.